Recently, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is already struggling in his campaign, was once again caught in a scandal due to a Chinese assistant, causing more problems for his re-election bid. According to the New York Post, on the 20th, Adams' former senior assistant and current re-election campaign advisor, Winnie Greco, was accused of giving an envelope full of cash to a reporter. The incident happened after Adams held a press conference to open his latest campaign office in Harlem. Katie Honan, a reporter from the news site The City, met Greco there. Later, she received a text from Greco asking to meet at a nearby bank. Then they went to the nearby Whole Foods supermarket, where Greco handed Honan a bag of sour cream and onion chips. At first, Honan thought it was just a snack, and despite several attempts to refuse, she reluctantly accepted it. It wasn't until she left and was about to enter the subway station that she opened the chip bag and discovered an envelope inside, containing cash, including at least one $100 bill and several $20 bills. Honan immediately called Greco, telling her she could not accept the money, and asked to return it. Greco claimed she had already left and suggested they meet later in Chinatown. This transaction was described as a failed payoff. After the story broke, reporters asked Greco why she did this and what her intentions were. She repeatedly stated that she had made a mistake and expressed apologies. Eventually, she even brought up Chinese culture in her explanation.
What was the purpose of doing
The
that?
purpose, I don't have to go. And I treat the people everywhere is the same. It's an angel, okay? But if somebody want to hurt me, because I have love to my community, and I have love to the world, to my family, my people, and somebody try to hurt me, I cannot say nothing. Before, I didn't know how much in my envelope because it's my birthday gift. That's Chinese culture. So I very happy.
Your birthday gift?
That's somebody give me my birthday gift. So I make mistake. I'm so sorry.
So
I cannot say nothing.
The response from Greco has sparked a flood of ridicule online, with some joking that her explanation could be considered a diplomatic-level literary creation. While she claimed she didn't know how much money was inside the envelope, she also called it a birthday gift. It seems that next time someone hands over an envelope, simply saying, "I can't explain, it's Chinese culture," might be enough to avoid responsibility. During a subsequent interview, Greco appeared somewhat angry, stating that Katie Honan was trying to harm her. When a reporter pressed for further reasons, she swiftly drove off. Later, her lawyer, Stephen Brill, told the Associated Press that the situation had been blown out of proportion. He further blamed the incident on cultural differences. In an email, Brill wrote, "This was not a bag of cash. In the Chinese culture, money is often given to others in a gesture of friendship and gratitude, and that's all that was done here. Winnie's intention was born purely of kindness." These two different explanations left many people confused. After the incident became public, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York began looking into the matter. The city reported that Greco later called the newspaper, requesting they not report the incident. According to previous reports from the New York Post, Adams visited China 7 times between 2014 and 2021 while serving as the Brooklyn borough president, with all trips organized by Greco. She also accompanied Adams on these visits. After being investigated by the FBI, Greco resigned from Adams' administration last fall. Although she has resigned from her public office, Greco has continued to appear at Adams' re-election campaign events. Since early August 2025, she has been increasingly active on the campaign front lines. By August 20th, the red envelope incident occurred while she was participating as a volunteer advisor in the campaign. Before resigning, Greco had long served as a liaison between Adams and the Chinese community in New York, as well as a prolific fundraiser for his campaign. Despite her resignation, she has occasionally appeared at Adams' campaign events. A Facebook user recently exposed that they had worked as an assistant to a public official in New York and knew Greco personally, the traditional overseas Chinese community, with ties to both Guangdong's older immigrants and the newer Fujianese community. Many politicians unfamiliar with the Chinese community's dynamics often hire her, thinking she can help solidify the Chinese vote. However, the user claims that Greco's behavior has been controversial for a long time and has often been linked to various scandals, suggesting she's a troublesome figure. This user's revelation seems to explain why the red envelope incident has drawn extra attention. It's not an isolated case, but rather connected to Greco's long-standing approach to handling things and the dynamics within the Chinese community. In July of this year, supporters of Eric Adams handed out envelopes filled with cash to Chinese-language journalists. They did so at 3 campaign events in Flushing, Sunset Park, and Manhattan's Chinatown. According to the New York Times, the organizers explained that it was a cultural tradition giving transportation fees or tokens of appreciation. The campaign insisted that they were unaware of the action. However, some speculated that these supporters were acting under the direction of Winnie Greco. The latest incident, triggered by a bag of chips, quickly gained attention in New York's political circles. Many analysts believe the issue goes beyond just a cultural mistake or failed chip bribe. It is seen as a clumsy display of Chinese Communist Party influence in U.S. politics, highlighting the dangerous plots that lurk behind cultural excuses. Greco is no ordinary volunteer. She's been a trusted confidant of Adams for over 10 years, serving as his Director of Asian Affairs and Senior Asian Advisor. Throughout Adams' rise from Brooklyn borough president to mayor, she played a key role, especially in bridging the connection between the New York Chinese community and his team. Reports show that he has accompanied Adams on multiple visits to China, promoting friendly exchanges between China and the U.S. However, these exchanges were not merely cultural. According to an investigation by the New York Times, Greco has deep ties to the Chinese government. She's been actively involved in facilitating meetings between Adams and Chinese officials, and as early as 2014, she was active in the U.S.-China business circle under her Chinese name Zheng Qirong. More concerningly, in 2023, the FBI raided her 2 residences and office in Flushing, investigating her for corruption and foreign influence operations. The FBI's focus included her close ties with Chinese nationals and whether she used these connections to influence local U.S. politics. A Facebook post pointed out that Greco's activities span across the old Guangdong Chinese community and the newer Fujianese immigrant group. The new Fujianese immigrants refer to those who arrived in the U.S. after the 1980s, often via illegal channels such as human traffickers. They settled in the Little Fuzhou area of New York's East Broadway. This group is large, with Fuzhouans becoming the primary source of Chinese immigrants in New York since the 1990s. Many work in the restaurant industry and have used family reunification to bring over more relatives. This group has direct and frequent ties with the CCP, as many were educated in China after the reform and opening up. The CCP's United Workfront department views these immigrants as new overseas Chinese and exerts influence through overseas associations like the American Fujian Association or the Lianjiang Association. These associations often invite Chinese consulate officials to their events to promote pro-China stances. Even more concerning, some Fujianese community leaders are suspected of acting as CCP agents. In April 2023, the FBI arrested 2 Fujianese leaders in New York, Chen Jingping and Liu Jianwang, accusing them of running a CCP overseas police station in Manhattan, which they used to monitor dissidents and advance Beijing's agenda. Investigations by Radio Free Asia reveal that these police stations are just the tip of the iceberg, aimed at surveilling Chinese nationals abroad. Interestingly, Winnie Greco is a Fujianese immigrant, having moved to the U.S. in 1995. Now she's deeply embedded in New York's Fujianese immigrant network. Reports suggest that from a personal motivation standpoint, Greco's actions could be a typical United Front strategy. The Chinese Communist Party's United Workfront department has long used overseas Chinese communities to infiltrate Western politics, aiming to influence policies, gather intelligence, or suppress dissent. As a Fujianese immigrant with a significant influence in New York's Chinese community, Greco has helped Adams with fundraising and even promised to build an arch in New York to thank Chinese donors. The recent potato chip incident might have been an attempt to secure favorable coverage or cover up scandals within Adams' team. On a broader scale, this incident can be seen as a microcosm of the CCP's influence operations in the U.S. In recent years, U.S. intelligence agencies have repeatedly warned that the Chinese Communist Party is using programs like the Thousand Talents program and United Front networks to exert influence at local levels in the U.S. Previous reports indicate that Greco's case is not an isolated one. In December 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice announced the arrest of Yao Ning, Mike's son, who was charged with being an illegal agent of a foreign power. The case involved him acting as a campaign manager for city council candidate in Southern California, attempting to influence local elections to promote pro-China policies. Sun, along with Chinese community leader Chen Jun, who had already been sentenced for similar charges, worked together to influence the election process. He was involved in managing a media platform, U.S. News Center, which supported the candidate, and covered travel expenses for the campaign. Prosecutors describe this as a decades-long infiltration effort aimed at implanting China-friendly legislators in local governments. In the same year, a scandal emerged within the New York state government. Governor Kathy Hochul's office saw one of her Asian American assistants, Linda Sun, accused of being a CCP agent. She was suspected of leaking information related to Taiwan issues, overseas Chinese community mobilization, and policies on Chinese investments. According to an FBI briefing submitted to Congress, Sun, during her tenure as the governor's Asian Affairs advisor, had worked to limit Taiwan officials from holding public events at the state level. She also tried to discourage New York State from participating in cultural exchanges with Taiwan, maintaining close contact with Chinese consulate officials. More seriously, Sun was suspected of helping CCP-linked organizations receive state government grants through the Multicultural Funding Program, while creating obstacles for pro-Taiwan groups' applications. After the case became public, Sun quickly resigned, and New York State cut ties with her, although the details of the investigation were not disclosed. Looking further back in 2020, the U.S. political scene was shaken by the Fang Fang scandal, which many security analysts still regard as a classic example of the CCP's soft infiltration tactics. This Chinese woman, originally named Fang Fang, or also known as Christine Fang, entered the U.S. as a student over a decade ago. She quickly built connections across several universities in California. She became active in Asian community groups, voter mobilization, and grassroots fundraising efforts. With her fluent English and strong social skills, she swiftly embedded herself in local Democratic Party politics, often appearing in photos with Congress members, aides, and even mayors. Several members of Congress, local officials, and even mayors had close ties with her, some of which even led to rumors of personal relationships. The most controversial aspect of her activities was her interactions with California Congressman Eric Swalwell. According to an FBI report, Fang infiltrated Swalwell's campaign through donation activities around 2014. She was subsequently added to the intelligence community's watch list. While Swalwell was never charged with any wrongdoing, Fang's sudden disappearance and the FBI's involvement marked the first major acknowledgement by the U.S. of China's systematic infiltration of local and entry-level political systems. The suspects are often Chinese immigrants who use their cultural affinity and community networks to gradually ascend to political power. Winnie Greco's trajectory follows this pattern, starting as a community liaison, then advancing to a mayoral advisor, and now being implicated in bribery. She even attempted in 2024 to push for a Sun Yat-sen exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum, which was considered an extension of CCP propaganda. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified in a 2022 congressional hearing that China represents the greatest espionage threat to the U.S., with their activities now extending from the federal level down to state and city governments. These quiet infiltration activities differ from traditional espionage narratives. They don't rely on codes, radio signals, or spy cameras, but instead build influence through network building, emotional connections, and economic exchanges. The individuals involved don't need official titles, nor do they necessarily follow direct orders, yet they manage to subtly push pro-CCP agendas at crucial decision-making junctures, such as policy formation, public discourse, and resource allocation. Why is the CCP so eager to influence U.S. local politicians? There are four main reasons. First, to suppress dissent, such as monitoring overseas human rights activists and religious groups. Second, to promote economic and trade interests, like securing more investments. Third, to shape public opinion and downplay issues like Xinjiang and Taiwan. And fourth, to test vulnerabilities in the democratic system and exploit corruption loopholes. In conclusion, these infiltration tactics are not necessarily about stealing national secrets. More often, they aim to influence the middle layer of the U.S. democratic system, the local officials and administrative teams responsible for budgeting and designing local agendas. These individuals, while often overlooked, are the lubricating network that helps the U.S. system function, and are, in many ways, the most vulnerable to such influence. As a result, compared to the federal level, which has a more robust and strict counterintelligence legal framework and security vetting system, local politics appears relatively loose and fragmented. Mayors, county executives, and local council members, who are grassroots elected officials, not only have limited oversight power, but also control key city resources and policy tools. They have huge influence in areas like land development, cultural exchanges, educational cooperation, and investment promotion. For this reason, these positions become ideal entry points for external forces to exert influence, and are particularly vulnerable to infiltration and manipulation. A report from the Center for Strategic and International Studies reveals that since 2000, there have been 224 Chinese espionage cases targeting the U.S., many of which involve political influence. In a diverse city like New York, the Chinese community is a key target for the CCP's United Front work. However, the impact of this issue extends far beyond New York's political scene. It serves as a wake-up call. Foreign infiltration into the U.S. democratic system is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Many online commenters have pointed out that if a bag of chips can hide such a conspiracy, how much more can cultural gifts like this undermine the U.S. democracy? Others have reminded that only through transparent investigations and strict law enforcement can the U.S. protect its core values.